Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 6th Supplier Engagement webinar series. I'm glad to have everybody in attendance. It looks like we still have folks jumping on, so we'll just let them keep going, and we'll do a little housekeeping to get started, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. So if you have a question during our presentation, please hit that question tab and type it in there. We'll be watching that, and then we'll answer your questions at the end of the presentation. I am excited to have this group of experts with us today to talk about the INL's fabrication and machining needs. With us, we have Mike Fish, who's the nuclear procurement manager out of the Material and Fuels Complex. We have Brian Chesnovar. Wave at me, Brian. Who is our procurement and construction quality manager. We have Kip Richards, who is a manufacturing engineer in our manufacturing shop here in-house. And then we have Brett Horsburgh, who is our lead contract specialist focused on fabrication. So welcome, guys. And with that, Mike, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. I guess first slide, Stacy, please.
Mike, I can't hear you. Hold on a second. It says you're unmuted, but I can't. Now I can hear you. Now go.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Stacy. First off, I'd like to say Happy Veterans Day. I'm sure with the number of people we have on and possibly even some of our coworkers, we have veterans here. So I say Happy Veterans Day, and I'm grateful for your service and the sacrifice you made to our country. So with this year, I can't go amiss without talking a little bit about COVID, because COVID has brought many changes to our lives. One is Teams. I think I joked yesterday I had 37 hours of Teams meeting in 1 week. That was a lot, but it has allowed us to be productive and communicate in different ways, which I think is really neat for us to be able to reach out to suppliers and give them a little background of what our needs are and where our struggles are. So COVID has brought many changes to our lives, and some of the changes brought to my life is, one, I've been working from home since March. That's been challenging but fun. I have a new office mate, my wife, and I became an empty nester because both my children are in college. So I have found that my wife and I are still very compatible, and so that's good. So we look at the INL, and it's quite large. We have 569,000 acres, 889 square miles. And if you look the far right here where the research and education campus is, my location is at the Materials and Fuels Complex. Now that's about a 40-minute drive. And what will surprise some of you on the line that are from big cities is it's only 45 miles and 3 stoplights. So we can cover quite a large distance relatively quickly because there's just not a lot of traffic, not a lot of people out here. Again, if you want to drive to the ATR complex, that's a little further. And that's about another 40 minutes from the Materials and Fuels Complex. And most of my remarks today will be focused on the Materials and Fuels Complex and the ATR complex, which I worked at for approximately 7 years. Further north is SMC, and that is where we do DoD work. And then we have the INTEC, Nuclear Technology and Engineering Center. That facility is used for nuclear fuel storage. We have the Radioactive Waste Management Complex as well. So you can see we're quite large, lots of room to grow, lots of room to branch out. And that's what's exciting about the INL is we're really transitioning and we're really growing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Next slide, please. Okay, so at the Advanced Tech Reactor, there's 3 nuclear facilities. There's ATR, ATRC, and NIMS. The picture with the blue Cherenkov effect glow is the ATR. And items I had the pleasure of building were in the picture on the top right. Those are called inner and outer flux trap baffles. And both ends of those are made out of Inconel, and the center section here is made out of 6061 T6 aluminum. And that piece goes right in the center where you can see around the blue glow around the fuel elements. And it's a really challenging piece to build, fun to build, and ATR goes through what we call a core internal change out every 10 years. So with that, they replace all the reactor core internals. And so that's quite an extensive amount of machining and fabrication effort that typically takes about 7 years to complete from when we start. Machining of items such as beryllium, hafnium, aluminum, Inconel, stainless steel components, all contained within the core of the reactor. The other thing that's going on at the Advanced Test Reactor is the reactor is over 50 years old. So has to be a lot of modifications and updates to existing facilities. So new piping, new pumps, new equipment need to be ordered, built, and maintained. So that's where a large percent of our fabrication work comes from, is due to the fact that we're rebuilding old equipment or building new spool pieces for piping, installing new piping components. So we have a large need for fabrication at ATR. Next slide, please. So Material and Fuels Complex is where I work, and there we have 13 nuclear facilities, 2 reactors, one of the nation's largest hot cells in which we do work. And an MFC is pretty unique. It's highly centered on research and development of reactor fuel and materials used in reactors and advanced reactors. We have a full analytical lab that's capable of doing any kind of analysis we need. We have a neutron beam for neutron radiography that we're starting to use. We have a transient reactor, which we use for testing of nuclear materials. We do fuel fabrication on site. So there's a lot of facilities, and they are almost all going under some sort of modification, update to capabilities. And that is where we are purchasing a large amount of glove boxes, furnaces, electron microscopes, and a lot of equipment to support the future needs of nuclear energy. So next slide, please. So kind of, what do we need? What do I see as a big need from fabricators on a big picture when we go out? And in this picture below is a picture of a glove box that we're working on, and it integrates many different pieces and components. So we're gonna have a furnace, we're gonna have a chiller, we have a controlled environment within the glove box, must maintain confinement. So we see a need for fabricators that can integrate from multiple manufacturers and different complex designs. So when you integrate the furnace, it has to be fabricated correctly, but it also has to be able to handle the thermal load associated with putting a furnace inside of a glove box. So those are some of the things that we see is critical going forward, is vendors that are capable of being able to integrate different designs, not just be able to machine, but we're going to ask you to integrate these components into the fabrication of a glove box or whatever else we may have. We're looking at, and because of that, we're doing a little more design build. So we'll give you a rough estimate, functional and operational requirements, and the specification that we need to meet. And we would like you to be able to design and build that. The difficulty is a lot of fabricators don't have full design on house that are capable of meeting our requirements. So then it's important for the fabricator to be able to subcontract out that design to someone who is capable of meeting the requirements in our specification. So that's not always an easy task. We also need suppliers that are able to work to a quality program, and Brian will talk about that, but key factors for me is ability to work to your processes, ability to create a traveler work order that documents how you're going to build our piece of equipment, how you're going to accept it, and make sure we have qualified personnel that are performing the tests and inspections. So that's, high level where INL is going. We've been heavily focused on research and developing and advancing nuclear fuel. And there's a lot of things we can do, and it's exciting times. We're the versatile test reactor. Some of you may have heard about that. Some of you may have heard of NuScale. NuScale is going to be destined to be sited on INL property. So we anticipate, and at MFC we had EBR-2, which was a really neat reactor that they actually shut off all power, and then it was able to passively remove all of the heat by natural circulation and shut itself down without any active safety systems. So the cool thing about that is we still have the dome, we still have the containment dome. And what we're doing now is we're doing major modifications to that facility to be able to allow purely R&D to we're going to deploy a reactor. We're going to advance nuclear technology within this country. So I'm excited about that. Hope you're excited about that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Mike, this is Stacy. We lost your audio right as you were telling us what was happening with EBR-2. Could you tell us that again, please?
Yes. After that, the sodium reactor, and what they did was they were able to turn off all power and walk away from EBR-2. And because of it was able to passively remove heat by natural circulation, it meant that no active safety systems were involved in the shutdown of the reactor. And that's pretty cool because, a passive system is pretty hard to fail. And with that, we kept the containment dome. And so with keeping the containment dome of EBR-2, we can now modify that building and set it up to be able to accept small modular reactors and micro reactors. And we have several agreements with people to be able to put micro reactors or SMRs inside the dome. If any of you haven't heard of NRIC, the National Reactor Innovation Center, that's a good thing to look up because that's a large part of the future of what MFC is going to be and what the INL is going to be as far as demonstration of reactors. So with that, I'm done. We'll turn it over to Brian. Unless you lost me again.
Nope, we heard you. Brian, are you there? Okay.
I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, if you could put my first slide up, Stacy. Morning, everyone. Welcome to the INL webinar. My name is Brian Chesnovar, and I'm lucky to have the privilege of being the manager of construction and procurement quality here at the lab. Today, I'd like to discuss the quality side of fabrication and machining for the INL and kind of give you a little QA perspective. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the quality levels that we have here at the lab and what type of typical QA program we may require of the supplier or subcontractor for those quality levels. Our quality levels are broken down into 3 categories: nuclear use, commercial use, and general use. These descriptions are kind of fairly high level that I'm about to give you, but hopefully it gives you a general sense of the intent of what each level is. First one I'd like to discuss is nuclear use. Nuclear is also referred to quality level 1 or QL1 here at the lab. And that item, the quality level 1 item, is an item that is credited by a safety basis document and provides a nuclear safety function. Items of this quality level typically require the supplier or the subcontractor to have an NQA1 based QA program and do require the supplier to be listed on our qualified suppliers list, or QSL. Some of you may refer to it as approved suppliers list, or ASL. In order to do that, it depends on the supplier successfully completion of a on-site evaluation by the subcontractor's QA program. This may also involve not just taking a look at the QA program, but may also be looking at technical evaluation of your facilities, equipment, tooling, capacity, obviously personnel and personnel certifications and qualifications. Some cases, regulatory compliance may come into play. Anything that may be deemed as essential to the work scope being provided. The next level, commercial use, which is referred to at the lab as quality level 3 or QL3. That is typically an item that's mission related. These items for QL3 procurements may require the supplier to have a QA program that is certified by an independent third-party registrar, such as an ISO 9001 program, an ISO 17025 program. In these cases, when you need to be added to the QSL with this type of a program, it basically involves what we call a desktop review of the quality system documentation that's part of your program, such as your quality assurance manuals, and also includes the verification of your ISO certification, the registrar, the authenticity, and to make sure verification to make sure that the work scope that we're asking you to provide falls within your scope of accreditation as well. These types of evaluations, we use third-party certifications, and you're not required to come to your facility to do any type of an on-site evaluation. There's another situation that I'd like to mention for QL3 that in the case that the supplier, you may be listed as an authorized distributor for a particular piece of equipment. We may require you to be what we call a commercial distributor. And basically that is an evaluation at your facility, which is using a simple checklist to check your business management practices, your material control practices, and any other capabilities that we may feel that you need. The last quality level that I'd like to discuss today is what we refer to as general use, or quality level 4, QL4, if you will. These quality level items are typically off-the-shelf items, items such as office supplies, which would include calculators, printers, monitors, furniture, just to name a few examples. These obviously do not require this supplier to have a quality program, and we just typically rely on your warehousing procedures for control of those items. Final thing I'd like to mention, I gave you the 3 quality levels, but part of that is the final thing we need to mention is commercial grade dedication, or CGD. For those of you who are not familiar with commercial grade dedication, we here at the lab have defined commercial grade dedication as a process that includes a technical evaluation, acceptance plan, and implementation of acceptance methods to provide reasonable assurance that a commercial grade item or service will provide its intended safety function. At the lab, we have a special procurement process for that. We refer to them as quality level 2. For quality level 2 procurements, and for those items that we are performing the dedication on, it may not require the supplier or subcontractor to have a QA program. Stacy, if you can change the slides for me. The next thing I'd like to discuss is, regardless of the quality level and no matter the size of your company, there are common tools that we can all use to achieve quality. To me, it is important to think of the lab and the suppliers and subcontractors as a team. As a team, there's some important things that we can all do to ensure that we're all successful. First thing I'd like to mention is make sure that you as a supplier or subcontractor understand the requirements of the contract documents. Contract documents may include purchase orders, subcontracts, statements of work, and specifications. These documents will also contain the quality clauses and the quality requirements, and it's important that you understand those. The next thing to understand is what part of your program is applicable to the work and how are they being implemented during performance of the work. Are there, Mike mentioned certifications. Are there special qualifications or certifications for people performing some of the activities related to the work scope, such as NDE certification, welder qualifications? Do you have special procedures at your facilities that the work scope may be relying on you for to implement? Those are just to name a few of those. It's also important that you take note of any hold points, witness points, surveillances, vendor data, which is a pretty big one, those submittals, and ensure that the scheduling and coordination for those activities with the team is identified and adequately planned. Brett's going to provide a little additional information during his part of the presentation on some of those topics. So. The last thing I'd like to suggest is make sure that it's clear on what the required preferred methods are for communicating issues or concerns that you may have during that contract work or performance of that work. The INL has various documents that we use for these types of communications. So if you have questions during that work performance, I highly encourage you to ask. Again, you know, it's important that we keep those lines of communication up between all team members and help each other out. I believe Brett's going to touch upon some of those change methods and how that's communicated as well during his part. Again, I'd just like to reiterate that this is a team effort, and it's important that we all work together to be successful. That's all I have. Thank you.
Kip, are you there?
I
There
am.
you go. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Stacy. Good morning, everyone. Glad that you could attend this webinar, and hopefully this information will help you out in the future. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Kip Richards. I am a manufacturing engineer here at the Idaho National Laboratory, and I work primarily with INL engineers and helping them take their engineering items out to have manufactured to outside manufacturing companies. Next slide, please, Stacy. On this slide, you can see that we have several support services here at INL. The one I would like to talk more on today is fabrication, welding, and machining. Won't do much with the glass blowing today, but those three items I'd like to talk more on. Next slide, Stacy. Our division is called Advanced Manufacturing, Fabrication, and Calibration. Our vision is to fusing science and innovation with the art of fabrication. Our mission is to provide excellent service, outstanding quality, consistent performance, and innovative solutions as a trusted team member supporting success of the INL mission. Next slide, Stacy. At Amfact, some of our key functions services that we provide the INL, first of all, we supply fabrication services to all parts of the INL. We do machining, we do welding, we do prototype and mock-up, like I said, glass blowing. We also have embedded technical support in research teams. We also do advanced manufacturing. We develop and operate novel tools and processes to advance manufacturing capabilities and material evolution. Next slide, Stacy. So at Amfact, some of our operation statistics, we currently have 4 primary fabrication facilities here at INL. We have 2 of them out on the desert, and then 2 fabrication facilities here in the city of Idaho Falls. We currently have or work with fab requests, over 500 fab requests per year just in our department. And so it's a very heavy load for us to do. These fab requests can be as simple as one component to be manufactured, all the way up to complex criteria with many assemblies and many components that need to be fabricated. We have over 60 CNC in operation. Our CNC capabilities, we have 26 mills, 17 lathes, 6 EDMs, 2 gun drills, 1 water jet, 1 grinder. We have 8 additional CNC systems in place between those 4 facilities. Next slide, Stacy. Who are we? We provide fabrication, demonstration, deployment, calibration, and technical support services to INL programs and projects. We're responsible to customer needs through cost-effective and timely delivery of services, applying the highest standards, meeting technical objectives, and ensuring safety in meeting our vision and mission. We provide fabrication and calibration solutions to enable projects and programs to execute as designed. We also partner with off-site providers, such as yourself, as necessary to support fabrication and calibration capabilities in meeting primary demands. The cool things that we do here at INL, we accommodate science by shaping materials, building components, and providing one-of-a-kind items for experiments and maintenance with exactness, while providing innovative technical solutions. Next slide, Stacy. Most of us, just so you know, most of our fabrications are one-offs. Very small parts, could be simple parts to be very complicated parts that have very tight tolerancing. Some of the materials that we most commonly use here at INL are stainless steels, aluminums, zircaloys, inconels, and titaniums, to name just a few. Next slide, please. So I'd like to go into how do we interface INL manufacturing with outside suppliers. And INL developed an outsourcing process called the INL Blanket Master Contract in 2016. We built this process to help reduce the time in getting a contract awarded to outside manufacturing companies. Currently, we have 9 outside manufacturing companies on this blanket master contract list. The size of these companies range from small local shops to large out-of-state shops. Their capabilities also range from small to large depending on the equipment they have. Last year on the blanket master contracts, we awarded approximately $400,000 in contracts to our outside manufacturing companies. Manufacturing demand here, though, at INL is continuing to increase over the last 4 years, and we see the outlook of this workload still increasing in the next few years. So we're trying to rely upon more and more of our outside manufacturing companies to help us succeed. So it's more of a partnership between INL and you as an outside supplier for INL. To give you kind of an idea of what these companies look like, there are many companies that have only machining capabilities, and other companies that only have manufacturing capabilities. Manufacturing, for instance, but don't have much machine capabilities. That doesn't mean that you cannot do work for the INL. We have a lot of companies that are in that same situation. A lot of times those companies will still get contracts, machining contracts, along with their manufacturing contracts, but they outsource a lot of their machining work, but still be able to meet all the requirements on the contract. So don't think that if you don't have both of those capabilities that you can't do work for INL, but yes, you can. So next slide, Stacy. When I go out to interview or audit a new outside manufacturing company, these are a few things I look for, trying to marry up what capabilities you have as a company, and that doesn't fit in the work that we do here at INL. I first look at the machining capabilities. Does your company have CNC/manual mills and lathes? Do you have EDM wires and sinkers? Do you have vertical, horizontal boring machines, gun drills? Just to name a few things that we look at that we do a lot of work in with these types of machines. Then I also look at the manufacturing capabilities of your company. The first one on the list I think is very important is welding processes. You have the capabilities to do the normal GTAW, GMAW, SMAW welding processes. Most important, do you have welding PQRs, WPSs, and qualified welders to do that work to the common welding codes in our industry? So that one is very important when it comes to manufacturing for us, that we lack a lot in with companies that have that capabilities. Also, do you have water jet capabilities, laser cutting, saws, cutting and grinding and forming. So just to name a few of those manufacturing processes that we go over to see if you have the capability of doing those things. And the last thing we look at is inspection capabilities. Like I told you before, we have a lot of our parts that are small. We don't do a lot of large parts, but they're small, and a lot of times they're very intricate, and they take a lot of tight tolerancing to be able to manufacture these parts. So inspection is a very important part of these manufacturing resources. Do you have a CMM? Do you have calipers, micrometers, gauge blocks, height gauges, just to name a few things that we look for. But once again, inspection is very critical to us here at INL to be able to not only manufacture the part, but to be able to inspect it to the contract requirements that we will issue to you that you'll need to meet. Next slide, Stacy. I'd like to just sum up. I know this is a very fast overview of what we do here at INL as far as fabrication. I think I'm talking more to you as an outside vendor. Once again, at least probably 90% of our work is small. We don't, these engineering components, also we do a lot of assemblies. We do very little production work. If we do production work, it's still 10 to 15 parts, probably max. But we do a lot of one-offs. And so our quantities typically 1 or 2 in these engineering items. Like I told you before, INL is in need of outside vendors with both machining and fabrication capabilities. And once again, that's not to say if your company doesn't have both of those that you can't do work for INL, because we do have other vendors to do it. And then the next thing is all INL fabrication that involves in welding. We typically require PQRs, WPSs, and then qualified welders, and then inspection for those. So that one's very important when it comes to welding, that we require those quality documentation on that. So hopefully that if you are a fabricator, that you will have those capabilities to be able to do fabrication for us here at INL. And the last, on the blanket master contracts, we typically require 100% dimensional inspection, unless it's stated otherwise on the contract. The reason why we do 100% dimensional inspection is because we want to have confidence in, first of all, with what we are getting from you as a supplier. And then it also helps speed up our process in getting those components to where they need to go and put in place so that they can start being used. So once again, inspection, qualifications, or capabilities, it's very key to us here at INL as you as outside manufacturer. I hope this has helped give you a little bit of idea of what we do here as far as manufacturing and what maybe you can help us out in the future for manufacturing. And that's all I have, Stacy.
Okay, thanks, Kip. Brett, are you there?
I'm here.
Perfect.
Can you hear me okay, Stacy?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I want to reiterate Mike's welcome this morning. Happy Veterans Day. Appreciate everything that you all do for our country. I want to introduce myself real quick. Brett Horsburgh. I am the lead contract specialist for the lab at the Materials and Fuels Complex in particular, but my team also manages I would say 99% of the fabrication needs that go outside of the Idaho National Lab. Now, as Kip has talked, we do have 4 internal fabrication shops here at the INL, 1 at the Advanced Test Reactor, 1 at the Materials and Fuels Complex, and 2 in Idaho Falls proper. And you know, those shops have first dibs on our work. They have very excellent capabilities, but what they can't handle gets pushed over the fence into procurement territory, and that's where me and my team fit in. So I have a team of 4 people now that work with me, 2 that concentrate mainly on fabrication in particular. And so when those guys have needs that they can't handle, we go to you folks in the outside world to get those needs taken care of. So I got to give a plug to Stacy and the INL vendor portal here really quickly. We do require all of our vendors, this is a procurement requirement, to be registered in the INL vendor portal. Stacy, I'll have Stacy reiterate it later. But if you're not registered, I would encourage you to go ahead and get registered in the portal that has unique search capabilities within that we can find you based on the NAICS codes that you register on. You know, commonly used ones that I solicit under all the time, 332999. That's the all other miscellaneous fabricated metal NAICS code, which gives me a little bit larger bidding pool. It's got a 750 employee maximum limit versus a 500 like on the machine shops in 332710. So I like to use that to include as many small businesses as I possibly can and get the larger ones as well. We do occasionally on the portal also provide opportunities when we have big projects coming up, or we have very unique or specific needs where we have expressions of interest that need to go out. We do post those on the INL opportunities portal. You can check in every now and again and view those. Currently, I'm working on one that we're getting an RFP out that we just completed an EOI. So, and it produced some great results for us. Take a few minutes to talk about Brett's perspective of what the INL needs. You know, Kip hit it pretty hard. We do a ton of one-offs here. You know, things break in a hot cell, things break in a glove box. We got to get stuff here quick. We got to have it manufactured. If their shops don't have the capability, we have to send it outside, and we usually like to have a pretty quick turnaround on stuff. Most of my business as well, probably 75 to 80% consists of those small one-off jobs. You know, building containment vessels for furnaces, or new hot cell parts, or manipulator parts, you know, just specific needs that are completely off the wall that we may never need for 30 years again. Sometimes we have old drawings, sometimes we have new. One of our struggles is with those drawings, they're never perfect. And so getting qualified vendors that can look over a set of drawings and pick out things like, hey, this doesn't look right to me, and asking those questions is key in that. I do also find that most of the time when we go outside, some of the larger projects we have an INL official project manager on. Most of them we do not. So I'm looking for shops that have strong project management skills, strong communication skills with us in particular, with me, with the engineers. I'm also looking for shops with unique capabilities. You know, just to name a few: anodizing, plating, gun drilling. You know, everybody's got a 5-axis CNC mill, but you know, do you have somebody that can program it really well and knock parts out in a cost-effective manner? You know, another one of our requirements is schedule. A lot of time we're in a time crunch. I know this drives a lot of my regular vendors crazy. We're asking for real quick turnaround times, and we're willing to pay the money to get that done in a pretty quick manner. So occasionally we do run some larger part runs, some production runs of shipping containers for the SMC out on the north end, glove boxes, NQA1. We do have those. We're looking very specifically, as Brian mentioned, to our NQA1 audited or the potential of being audited and approved on our ASL for NQA1 work there. But those are kind of the exception in our world, not necessarily the general commodities. So as Kip stated, we know there's going to be a bunch of need, particularly if the INL, if Congress funds the versatile test reactor here that could go in. The studies are being done. That could really put a pinch on our manufacturing capabilities locally, regionally, potentially nationwide, right? It's a first of its kind. It's the first reactor that's been built in many years, and we're excited that we actually have the potential to have that happen. Let's see, quality assurance requirements. Brian stated almost everything you need to know. I'm looking in a contractual relationship to flow those quality requirements down to you folks, right? We want shops that have some sort of instituted quality program, where it's just an ISO or whatever. We just want to know that you have a plan to build the parts. You follow that plan. You follow the inspection plan and can document it from start to finish. We want shops with qualified welders. We want shops with qualified welder programs, inspector qualifications, that sort of stuff. There are significant impacts for stuff that is not built right, particularly when you're talking, as Mike said, in 13 nuclear facilities at MFC alone. When we do go out on the street, I just want to talk really quick about a typical request for proposal. That is if we pick you to be solicited for some of these fab jobs, some of the requirements would be, we want to know what your schedule looks like. We're obviously going to get certified pricing from you, potentially a copy of your quality assurance program or certificate if we have not obtained that already or haven't worked with you before. The RFP package typically I'll send out drawings, specification, quality clauses, BEA's general provisions, which are our terms and conditions, if you will, and most people would call them. Certified pricing, a vendor data schedule. Brian briefly touched on that. I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a sec. The change request form, which is INL's version of a change order. I send these documents out. I usually typically ask for a 2-week bid time, return on bids. Some jobs it's easy, that happens. Some drag on to 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity of the solicitation. So usually the program is demanding a quick turnaround, a quick award, a quick delivery. So we try, we're in a customer service business here in INL procurement, and we try to make that happen as best we can. All honesty, probably 99.9% of my fabrication awards are based on, are you technically acceptable? Can you show me that you can build the parts? And whoever has the lowest price that we feel is technically acceptable usually gets, it's the government way. I'm trying to save money for you as the American taxpayer and minimize the cost to the INL and to you as a taxpayer. So I usually try after each solicitation, if a vendor wants a debrief, I try to give them, hey, were you technically acceptable? Yes, no. If you weren't, why not, right? Let's have that discussion. That's one thing I don't do extremely well, as busy as I've been, but we're going to try harder on that. And also, I don't like to give exact prices on who was the low bidder, but I'll give you a percentage if you weren't the low bidder, as to relative to that price where your company came in. So, and I know that feedback is important to vendors so they can adjust. Well, how did we miss it? Why did we miss it? You can go back in and analyze your bids. Stacy, next slide, please. So once we pick a low price bidder, I come in and I do my procurement thing, and I'm going to issue it's usually a purchase order for these items. Occasionally we have contracts. It depends on if you want milestone payments or not, depending on the size of the build. One of the key things here is the terms and conditions, as I mentioned before. BEA calls them their general provisions. We're pretty staunch. We have pretty strict requirements on what the Department of Energy flows down through our prime contract to BEA of what we have to stick by. And typically in these, I don't have anybody take exceptions to our terms and conditions because they're put in place to cover us, BEA, but you guys as well as subcontractors. It protects intellectual property that's generated. It protects you for default, us on default. Without going into that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but that's pretty key that you're willing to sign up to our general provisions. Typical documents you would see, you'll see a contract or a purchase order. You'll see the quality clauses. We can negotiate milestone payments if you're a small business and getting a large, you have a large job. You maybe need some money to cover materials, and it's a long build. We're certainly happy to do that. We try to support that as best we can within reason. The quality clauses, you'll see those come down with the contract. They are applicable to each action. Brian briefly touched on those. They're basically quality requirements, like standard flow down requirements. We're going to ask you to flow every requirement in a PO down to whoever you're using as a sub-tier. We want actual CMTRs or typical CMTRs. We want to see your welder qualifications. We want to see your inspector qualifications. We want to see your dimensional inspector reports. It gives you an idea of the exact QA nature that you need to bid into the project, right? And that information is fed into the INL through the vendor data system, which I'll get into next. We typically handle questions, comments, concerns, or change orders via our change request form. It's fairly detailed. We can ask for, if we're adding scope, if we're modifying scope. If you have a question, we can document it officially through a change request. I look at it, the KIP or somebody, whoever's requesting the services, look at it. We have a QE look at it here to make sure that it aligns with the end goal of the mission. And those can involve pricing impacts, schedule impacts, and we document that accordingly. Once the fabrication is complete, we make sure that all the vendor data, which I'll talk about next, is complete. We make sure that all of the change requests is generated or incorporated into the contract, and then I issue one last amendment to the contractor purchase order, and then can grant you permission to ship the parts to the INL. So key part of that, again, is the vendor data system. We have specific forms at the INL that we use to convey that information to you, and a specific form that you convey that information back to us. We have a whole line of vendor data coordinators here that's their sole job, is to get the information from you, enter it into an electronic system, send it out for review to all the SMEs at the INL, and then get concurrence back to them that it was either acceptable, it was unacceptable. We give you reasons why, and we try to take care of that. So managing projects is key for us, right? With the lack of PMs, it's tough. We really need people that have good PM skills, and we want trust. I want communication. If we choose to go with a new company, follow-on work is based on how you perform. You perform terribly, it's not going to give me incentive to go back and use you again, and we'll just feed you more rope. You can continue to perform, we'll continue to feed RFPs. Trust and communication. My last key, and I know we're approaching the witching hour, my last piece of information for you guys: if I send you something and you're not confident you can knock it out of the park, just tell Brad, no, man, I'm not going to bid this. Or tell one of my other folks, I'm not going to bid this because I don't feel like I can do it 100%. Some shops say they won't do it if they can't do it 90, 60, 70% in-house, and that's important. So again, thank you all for attending. Looking forward to hearing from you and seeing if we can do some business with y'all.
Thanks, Brett.
You're welcome.
Kip and Mike and Brian, if you can bring your webcams back up. We have just a few questions that I want to make sure that we get to. So again, I want to thank you guys for participating in this series. I think it's important to share this information with the vendor community, and hopefully the suppliers, the vendors that are tuned in today, if you found it valuable, please shoot me an email and let me know, because it's important for us to get that feedback from you on this webinar series to see if we're going to continue that. So first question, Mike, I'm going to do this one for you. Will INL require engineering design services in conjunction with fabrication? Oh, Fish, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Yeah, just repeat the question one more time. Make sure I get it right.
Okay, will INL require engineering design services in conjunction with fabrication?
Yes, we have more of those contracts going out where we spent on glove boxes and casks that we have recently put out. Those require design services and fabrication. Doesn't necessarily have to be within the same shop. So for example, you could be a fabricator and sub out your design services.
Okay, Mike, this one's for you too. When do you anticipate the glove box integration projects to come forth?
So we've already awarded one contract for the glove box integration, but there is another one that we're starting some initial procurements for manipulators right now. I'm anticipating that's probably 3 months away. Brett, what do you think about that?
I'm hearing it's a lot closer than that, but
Okay.
you know, it's we'll see. I think they're working through some QA issues and some other things, but I think my word is I'm going to see that to get out for an RFP before Christmas. But again, you never know. Got to get all the parties happy before we can get it on the road.
Yeah, I know we're working on some of the safety significant items and the acceptance criteria and the requirements for those. I'm seeing some of that.
I'm not sure who can answer this one, so whoever knows the answer can feel free just to jump in. Regarding off-the-shelf items, do you require a supplier to warehouse items pre-order on-site, or are you willing to order for just-in-time delivery, not requiring the supplier to warehouse on-site?
I think I can answer that. We typically do not require any warehousing and storage of products. We have a warehouse at MFC, at Central, and in town where we can store those. We try to identify critical spares and put them in our warehouse. However, the problem becomes we have aging facilities that are 60 years old, so it's hard to account for all those spares. So we do live with just in time, but we do usually push pretty hard when a facility is shut down to expedite those items.
Okay. We have just a couple more questions, so if the attendees can hang on, I know we're at 10 o'clock or just about, but we do have the line open for about 30 more minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the rest of these questions. For programs such as design build, as were referred to in Mike's presentation, so Mike, this is for you, has INL found that the lowest priced technically acceptable contracts have been beneficial, or is there consideration to move to best value contracts? Brett, you might want to weigh in too after Mike's done.
I will.
Yeah, so for the items so far that we sent out that have been low price, technically acceptable, it's something we were very comfortable in, such as glove box design. We're very comfortable with that. So we're very comfortable overseeing that, and we were comfortable with who the bidders were. So we felt low price, technically acceptable was fine. However, in each of those projects, we have a meeting beforehand to discuss the best approach, whether we should go best value or whether we're confident in our supply chain for low price technically acceptable. So that's how I would answer it. We consider it pretty much for every large design build. When I say large design build, I'm talking probably $1 million and over is when we start heavily considering the other options.
I'll follow up to that, Stacy. I got to admit, from a procurement perspective, a best value is resource heavy and time. It really takes a lot of time to put one together. And, you know, gathering a source evaluation board on our end, there's a ton of work that needs to be put in. Again, I work with Mike, I work with Brian, I work with various other stakeholders, and we meet, we decide, okay, what shops do we see that we know have capabilities? What does this fit in? I mean, you know, I don't want to go throw a $5 million glove box deal into you know, more of a mom and pop shop. That's certainly what we don't want to do. So we vet that pretty heavily up front. And you may see some best values coming up. It's typically reserved for engineering services, design services, with maybe an option to build. But they're so labor intensive, and usually we just don't have the time. Brutally honest, just don't have the time to perform a best value with what the program wants, the parts in the time frame they want it in. So.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Do you prefer to work with local fabricators?
You know, my small business advocate, Stacy, likes, we have certain goals at the INL. We do like to, you know, we negotiate with DOE. We like to use Idaho businesses. We like to use small businesses in particular for anything under 250K. It's mandated. It is really easy for us to go ahead and use local vendors because we can go over to their shop. We don't, particularly in the COVID season right now, it's becoming more and more important. You know, travel for us is almost non-existent, except if you want to stop into a local shop, you can stop by if they follow their protocol. So that's going to be an interesting call. I think you're going to see a little bit of a reel in to some more local stuff because we just can't get permit. We got to go all the way to the lab director to get permission to go ahead and travel to these various facilities to do source checks and witness hold points and that stuff. So I do prefer, and I have a pretty decent stable of local and regional folks that I like to solicit and use, but I'm not, again, I'm open. I think the needs are going to dictate that we have to expand our horizons. So.
Yeah, just as I say, as we look to the future of what INL is going to be doing and the rapid expansion of some of our facilities, we're going to have no choice but to expand broader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kip, do you have a preference for local in what you do?
You hear me? All right.
Yep.
I guess the benefit of going local, we do have a few local shops that run off of Lincoln Master versus out-of-state shops. I think the benefit of local shops a lot of times is the turnaround time. We have some shops that are very small, that they rely upon INL on some of their work. And so the benefit is a lot of times we have short turnarounds where local shops do benefit that. But we also have some other shops that are out of state in Utah and so forth that their turnaround can be just as competitive as the local shops. But that is one benefit of local shops.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, here's a question for me. When will INL update the forecast? As soon as I get information from the programs on what their needs are, I will be updating the forecast. This is something that we're working on internally. It's my commitment to you in the supplier community to improve the number of acquisitions and opportunities that we post out there. It's an uphill battle internally. We have a meeting on it again this afternoon. So you have my commitment that you will start seeing additional postings out there please be patient with me because it is a little difficult to give the information, but Mr. Fish is committed to helping me get those posted out there as well. So keep watching that webpage. We have the question on where do you find those RFPs? We do not release our RFPs publicly. It's a closed bid list that we put together internally, and only those folks who are on that bid list that is vetted by the contract specialist and the project receive the RFP package. So you will not see an open RFP package out on the streets from INL. It does go to just that closed bid list that we select internally. The presentation, we will get that posted this afternoon on procurement.inl.gov on the webinar series webpage. We'll post that out there. I will include these 4 individuals' email addresses on their contact page on the presentation, so you can reach out to them that way. A little secret at INL is our email addresses are our first dot last name at inl.gov. So there's a little secret for reaching out to us and finding us. And as always, you can always get in touch with me if you email that small.business@inl.gov email address. That actually comes directly to me. I'm the one that moderates that mailbox. So reach out to me anytime you want, and I will try and connect you with the folks that you need to connect with. It looks like that's about all of our questions, and we are 7 minutes over. So again, thanks to everybody for participating. I hope you found it valuable. It appears from the comments that I'm getting back that people did find it valuable. So continue that. You will get a short survey sent out after the fact. If you want to respond back to that and let us know that you did find it valuable, that will help me as we try and move the webinar series forward. So with that, and no further questions, again, thank you. And I want to echo what Brett and Mike said. Thanks to all of our veterans out there for your service and for what you've done for our country. We really appreciate it. And with that, everybody have a great day and stay safe and healthy.